Every single government on Earth is playing this constant high-stakes tug-of-war. And it's not really about left-wing or right-wing politics, not at its core. It's this fundamental battle, right? Managing the chaos of today versus getting ready for the massive shocks of tomorrow. So let's dive in and really break down this ultimate balancing act.
And this image just nails it, doesn't it? On one hand, you've got the police badge, that's the bedrock, right? Law and order. And on the other, this futuristic satellite dish, which is all about looking ahead, anticipating change. The thing is, this isn't just some abstract question for an exam, no way. This is the real deal, core dilemma that every single modern government is wrestling with day in and day out.
Okay, so to really nail this, you've got to understand what the question is actually asking for. It's got 3 targets. First, you have to know these 2 core roles inside and out. Second, and this is key, you've got to get your head around that phrase, more essential. See, this isn't about just describing things. You have to make a judgment call. And that leads to target number 3, which is the big prize, coming up with a really solid, logical evaluation that actually weighs one role against the other. All right, so let's tackle the first side of this argument. We're going to start with the foundation of order, making the case for managing the present.
So the whole idea here sounds pretty simple, right? Just make sure people behave in an organized, peaceful way. But the reality is incredibly stark. Take that away, and society just collapses into chaos. And here's the most important takeaway. Law and order isn't just another policy on the list. It's the absolute non-negotiable prerequisite. I mean, think about it. If people don't feel physically safe, no other government plan, no matter how brilliant, is ever going to get off the ground.
Now, this is a fantastic way to build your argument, using that peel structure. So, your main point, it's all about preventing chaos and creating a safe and secure environment. Your evidence? You point to something real, like the swift police action during the 2013 Little India riot, which restored peace. Then you explain it. Strict enforcement scares off criminals, which makes citizens feel safe and investors feel confident enough to put their money in. The link back is crystal clear. Law and order is the bedrock that society needs to function every single day.
Okay, but hang on. What's the point of having a perfectly neat and tidy society if the whole thing is about to drive off a cliff? So now, let's pivot and look at the other side of the coin. The absolute mandate for survival, which is all about preparing for the future.
So what are we talking about here? It's about seeing threats on the horizon and getting solutions ready before they hit you. Because let's be real, we live in a crazy, volatile world. If a country only ever focuses on what's happening right now, on internal order, it's going to get blindsided and absolutely crippled by external shocks. We're talking about pandemics, climate change, massive supply chain disruptions. These are the kinds of things that make this role so critical for a nation's very survival.
So let's see how this argument stacks up using that same structure. The main point is to protect the country and keep it economically competitive. The evidence? A perfect example is Singapore's 30 by 30 goal. That's a huge plan to produce 30% of its own food by 2030, specifically to shield itself from global food shortages. And the explanation is that this kind of proactive thinking creates solutions before the crisis actually happens. It's all about ensuring the country can survive in a world where you just don't know what's coming next.
So there you have it. That's the big dilemma, isn't it? Do you go with the solid, unshakable foundation or the visionary superstructure that protects you from the storms of the future? Which one is really more essential?
When you put them side by side like this, the tension just becomes so clear. Law and order, that's all about the here and now. It's immediate. It deals with internal threats like crime, and its main goal is stability. But anticipating change, that's the long game. It's focused on external shocks, pandemics, you name it, and its ultimate goal is survival and progress. They're almost operating on totally different wavelengths.
But what if this is a trick question? What if forcing us to choose between them is completely the wrong way to look at this? Well, get ready, because here comes the big reveal. This right here, this is the master insight. It's that aha moment. The truth is these 2 roles are not enemies. They're not in opposition at all. They are locked in a dependency loop. Think about it. You need law and order to create a stable, prosperous country where you can even afford to invest in things for the future. But at the same time, you need to anticipate change, like securing food and water, to prevent the very crises that would cause riots and completely shatter that law and order. You see? They're constantly feeding each other. Okay, so understanding this loop is great, but that's the theory. How do you actually use this insight to write a perfect, top-scoring answer? All right, let's get practical. Now, this is absolutely crucial, so listen up.
You cannot sit on the fence. The golden rule for grabbing those top marks is to pick a side and argue it with confidence. And the way you do that is by introducing a clear weighing criterion. Something like short-term foundation versus long-term survival, or maybe root cause versus symptom. You need a clear reason to justify why your chosen side comes out on top.
All right, so here's path A for you. This argument says law and order is the absolute fundamental prerequisite. The logic is dead simple. Without peace and stability at home, the country just falls apart. If your citizens are just fighting to survive day to day, the government has zero chance of even thinking about, let alone paying for, fancy future projects like vertical farms. Internal stability has to be priority number one.
Then there's path B, which argues that long-term survival is what really matters. This argument goes something like this. Sure, internal order is nice, but the world out there is incredibly dangerous and volatile. A government could have a perfect zero-crime society, but if it doesn't see a global food crisis or a pandemic coming, the whole country will just collapse from the outside. So in this view, anticipating change is the ultimate guarantee that the nation even has a future.
And hey, to make your arguments sound really powerful, you've got to use the right language. So think of this as your toolkit. When you're talking about law and order, you want to be using words like prerequisite, bedrock of society, and internal stability. And for anticipating change, you should be using phrases like volatility, external shocks, and long-term survival. Honestly, these are the key words that are going to unlock those top marks.
So, when you boil it all down, what is good governance? It's really about this dual mandate. And it doesn't matter which side you argue for, whether it's the absolute foundation of law and order or the essential future-proofing of anticipating change. The path to a brilliant answer is always the same. Trust the structure we talked about, use solid real-world examples, apply a clear weighing criterion, and then argue your side with conviction.